She replaced me with her real dad. So I quietly walked away. I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for over 2 decades. When we first met, she was a single mom raising a bright, curious 5-year-old daughter named Emma. I still remember the first time I saw Emma. She was chasing a paper airplane across the park, clutching Sarah's hand tightly. In that moment, something in me said, "This is your future." From the beginning, Sarah was honest about her past. Emma's biological father, Mark, had always been unreliable. He'd show up once in a while with empty promises and cheap gifts. He'd call on birthdays, disappear for months, and return just long enough to break Emma's heart again. Sarah did her best to shield her from disappointment, but it was hard. Emma always got hopeful whenever Mark reappeared. When our relationship became serious, Sarah made one thing clear. Emma would always come first. I respected that completely. What I didn't expect was how deeply I would grow to love that little girl. It didn't happen overnight, but gradually, every "I love you, Dad," every crayon drawing with my name spelled wrong, chipped away at my heart. I was there when she learned to ride a bike, falling over and over again. I stayed up through the night when she had a fever, holding her while Sarah fetched medicine. I helped her memorize her poem for her school recital, and on the big day, she looked out from behind the curtain and found me in the crowd. She needed to know I was there, and I always was. Mark, on the other hand, remained a distant figure. He made promises like, "I'll take you to the beach next summer," or "I'll buy you that bike," but never followed through. Emma cried every time he let her down. And I was the one who picked up the pieces. Still, I never spoke badly of him. I didn't want to be the reason she lost faith in her dad. As the years went by, Emma and I only grew closer. I attended her parent-teacher meetings, helped her shop for her graduation dress, and cheered her on at school games. She called me Dad, and even though we didn't share DNA, I knew she meant it. So when Emma announced her engagement to Andrew, I was genuinely thrilled. I imagined walking her down the aisle, a moment that would symbolize everything we had been through together. I never said it out loud, but I assumed that honor would be mine. After all, I had been there for every important step of her life. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I was actively involved. I helped with reception costs, contributed toward her dress, and paid for several extras. I didn't ask for anything in return, just hoped to be seen as someone who mattered. Then, the invitation arrived. I opened it with a smile, expecting to see my name in a special place. But it was just a generic guest list. I wasn't given any special mention. Even more painful. Emma had asked Mark to walk her down the aisle. At first, I thought there had been some kind of mistake. When I asked her about it, she said something that struck me like a slap. "There's only one biological father, and I've always wanted to give him this moment." It wasn't just her choice that hurt. It was how casually she said it, as if it had never even occurred to her to choose me. Her wedding day was one of the most painful experiences of my life. I arrived early, wearing a custom-tailored suit. I sat quietly among the guests and watched as Mark walked her down the aisle. All eyes were on him. During the speeches, I waited, hoping for even a small mention of me. Nothing. I was invisible. Something inside me shifted that day. The part of me that was always willing to sacrifice just shut down. I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything for me. Emma looked beautiful that day, glowing with joy. But to me, the image was tinted with sadness. Not because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I finally saw how replaceable I was to her. The following week, Emma and Andrew went on a lavish honeymoon. I didn't ask about it. I couldn't bring myself to talk about the trip that had followed such a painful moment. But then she called me soon after she returned. Cheerful, as if nothing had happened. She talked excitedly about the beaches, romantic dinners, and sunsets. I listened quietly, giving short replies, trying not to let my emotions show. Then came the real reason she called. "Dad," she said, and that word, so familiar, cut deeper than I expected. "We ran into a few unexpected expenses on the trip. Do you think you could help us cover the cost?" I was stunned. She asked as if it was nothing. As if I'd obviously say yes, because I always had. For a moment, I said nothing. I was the fixer, the one who always showed up, who gave without asking, but not this time. "I'm sorry, Emma," I said, my voice calm even as my heart raced. "I can't help you with this." Silence. I imagined her face, confused, maybe even hurt. "But you've always helped before." I took a deep breath. "Maybe you should ask Mark. He's your real father, right? Maybe he can help." Another pause. Then a quiet, "I understand." And she hung up. No argument. No anger. Just an empty silence that echoed in my chest. Later, Sarah confronted me. She said I was being cold, that I couldn't just walk away from Emma when she needed me. But I told her the truth. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. I had been there for over 20 years, doing everything a father should do. And when Emma had the chance to honor that, she didn't. She chose someone who had only ever shown up when it was easy, and walked away when it wasn't. I realized I couldn't keep being her safety net. Someone she remembered only when things got hard. That chapter of our story closed the day she chose to forget who had really been there. Update: 6 months later, a house of cards falling down. Sarah didn't understand. To her, blood was sacred. It came first, no matter how hollow or absent it had been. Even when that blood had done little more than whisper empty promises and vanish into silence, she held it close. Our conversation about Emma ended the way so many do now. In a quiet, tense stillness. But something shifted that day. A wall, invisible yet undeniable, settled between us. Emma hasn't called me since. Instead, I heard about her through Sarah. Apparently, after the honeymoon, reality struck fast. Mark, as expected, disappeared again. No follow-up, no support. Just silence. I suppose Emma finally began to see the man she had so desperately tried to idolize. But recognition came too late. Her decision had already left a mark on me. One I couldn't erase. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the light from the TV flickering on the walls. I found myself reliving the memories. Her giggles as a child, the Father's Day cards she'd made with glitter and crooked handwriting, her tear-streaked face when I taught her to drive after she'd scratched the car. Every moment where I was Dad. I used to believe that being called Dad was a badge of honor. Not something you're given, but something you earn. But now, I can't help but wonder, was it just a placeholder for her? A name she used when it was convenient, when there were bills to be paid or someone needed to show up. Maybe I'll never fully recover from what she did. But one thing is clear. I'm done being the one who always shows up, who fixes, who gives. Because honestly, I don't have anything left to give. Update: 3 months after the wedding. Despite my decision to step back, the drama continues to swirl around me like smoke in a room I can't leave. Sarah still tries to play the peacemaker, her glances loaded with that old mix of hope and guilt, silently begging me to fold. But she doesn't see what I do. Something in me broke the day I watched another man walk Emma down the aisle while I sat in the shadows. Since that day, Emma hasn't contacted me. Not once. And strangely, the silence feels like peace. No more texts dressed up as friendly check-ins that end with, "Can you help us with this one thing?" No more pressure to be the fallback plan. I've grown used to the quiet. I've even begun to like it. But life, of course, has a sense of irony. One evening over dinner, Sarah said it casually, almost like it was weather talk. "Emma and Andrew are having money problems. Andrew lost his job. They're struggling to make rent." I kept eating. I didn't have to ask where this was going. I already knew. "Don't you think we should help?" she asked. I set my fork down and looked her in the eye. "I'm not her father, Sarah. According to Emma, that title belongs to Mark. So if she needs help, he's the one she should call." The look she gave me, part heartbreak, part outrage, would have crushed me a year ago. Now, it barely moved the needle. "How can you be so cold?" she whispered. "Cold," I said with a bitter laugh. Cold was sitting in that crowd while the man who did nothing got the honor I thought I'd earned. Cold was being erased from a moment I helped build. She didn't reply. She just took her plate to the sink in silence. We didn't speak again that night. Our backs turned in bed like strangers sharing a mattress. Then came Andrew's message. About a week later, I got a message from him. Just a few lines. "Hey, it's Andrew. I know things are strained, but I need to talk. It's important. Do you have time?" I stared at the screen, unsurprised. I already knew what he wanted. It's always money in the end. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet. We sat in a small cafe, the kind where the chairs wobble and the coffee tastes like burnt hope. Andrew looked worn out. He hadn't touched his drink. "Thanks for coming," he said, though there was no gratitude in his voice. Just obligation. "So?" I prompted. He sighed. "Emma and we're behind on rent. If we don't come up with the money in 2 weeks, we're out. I lost my job, and Emma's hours got cut. We were hoping maybe you could help." I waited a beat. Then I asked the question that made his eyebrows jump. "Did you ask Mark?" He blinked. "Mark?" "No, Emma didn't think. I mean, she thought you might help. You always have." I smiled. But it wasn't the warm, supportive smile of a father. It was the kind you give when the irony tastes sour on your tongue. "Exactly. I always have. And when it mattered most. When she could have honored that, she chose someone else." I leaned in slightly. "So no, Andrew. I won't be helping. Maybe it's time for Mark to finally show up for once." He sputtered, tried to reason with me, said it wasn't fair to let them be evicted. "This isn't just about Emma," he argued. "It's about me, too." I raised my hand, silencing him. "This conversation is over. I wish you both the best, but I'm done carrying burdens that aren't mine anymore." Then I left him sitting there with his cold coffee and even colder reality. Update: 6 months since the wedding. The past half-year has been unexpectedly freeing. Emma and Andrew have stopped reaching out. The pleas for help have gone silent. Sarah, though, is a different story. She's still angry, still wounded. Not by Emma's betrayal, but by my refusal to play savior once again. She doesn't say it aloud, but I see it in the way she moves around me now. Stiff, like someone living with a stranger. She calls it betrayal. I call it finally drawing the line. And I've started living again. I took up woodworking. Turned the garage into a space that smells like sawdust and focus. I've reconnected with old friends. I'm remembering who I was before I became the man who always said yes. A few weeks ago, Sarah came home looking more upset than usual. "They've been evicted," she said sharply. Emma and Andrew had finally run out of chances. Their landlord cut them off. Now they're crashing with Andrew's mother, in a cramped apartment that can barely fit one adult, let alone a struggling young couple. Sarah stared at me, eyes flashing. "This wouldn't have happened if you'd just helped." I didn't argue. There was no point. No matter how many times I explain that this isn't about money. It's about principle. She refuses to hear me. But I know I did the right thing. Emma made her choice. She put her faith in a man who's never earned it. And now, she's living the consequences. The irony. Mark hasn't lifted a finger. When Emma reached out to him, he didn't even reply. And the cherry on top. Sarah told me last week. Almost chuckling at the absurdity. That Mark promised Emma he'd help them get a new place. Said he just needed to stabilize his finances. I raised an eyebrow. "And she still believes him?" I asked. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't have to. After all this time, Emma is still chasing a fantasy. While the man who was there, the one who stood by her every day of her life, has finally stopped running to catch her. Paraphrased story. She still believes him. I didn't ask out of anger. Just honest curiosity. Sarah sighed, her eyes filled with sorrow. "He's her father," she said simply, like that alone explained everything. That conversation haunted me for years. I had done everything I could to fill the void Mark left in Emma's life. But now I began to wonder. Was it all for nothing? Maybe, to her, blood ties mattered more than years of presence and effort. Maybe I was never competing with Mark's influence, but just his existence. A week ago, Emma finally reached out. Not for money, surprisingly. She sent a message saying she wanted to meet and talk. I hesitated for a while, but curiosity won. We met at the park we used to visit when she was little. She was already sitting there, on a bench, nervously fidgeting. When I approached, she gave me a hesitant hug. Stiff, not quite genuine, but I returned it out of politeness. We sat in silence for a while before she started talking. Not about why she'd called me, but about her life. How difficult it was living with Andrew's mother, the tension in her marriage, how she missed having her own space. I let her talk. I could tell she needed to. Eventually, she got to the point. "Dad," she said. A word that once meant everything to me but now felt strangely hollow. "I know I hurt you. I know the wedding hurt you." I didn't realize how deeply. Not until it was too late. I stayed quiet, letting her speak. Inside, I felt a tangle of emotions. Disbelief, sorrow, and a trace of resentment. She took a breath and continued. "I just want to say I'm sorry. I never meant to make you feel replaced." "But you did," I replied, calm yet firm. "Not just at the wedding, Emma. Every time you dismissed what I did for you, every time you made Mark something he never truly was. You say you didn't want me to feel replaced, but maybe I never truly held that place in your heart." She looked down, visibly shaken. Maybe she thought an apology would fix everything. But some wounds don't heal. Some things, once broken, stay that way. Our talk ended soon after. As we said goodbye, she told me she hoped we could rebuild our relationship. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't sure it was possible. Emma hadn't just hurt me. She broke something deeper, my trust. Update. I've done something neither Sarah nor Emma will ever forgive me for. And honestly, I'm not even sure I deserve forgiveness. Since the wedding, my relationship with Sarah has deteriorated more than I imagined possible. What started as emotional distance became a chasm we couldn't cross. The love, the connection, even the mutual respect. We lost it all. We still shared a house, but not a life. At first, I believed the coldness was temporary. But over time, I realized Sarah wasn't just hurt. She was resentful. She blamed me for Emma's struggles, and that blame poisoned everything. Our nights of conversation and comfort turned into endless silence. And then, someone else entered that silence. Sophie, Sarah's best friend. The fun aunt in Emma's life, always around with her loud laughter and thoughtful gifts. After the wedding, she started checking in more. At first, I thought she wanted to help. But eventually, I realized. She just saw me. She listened. She understood. She validated everything I had been feeling for months. That I wasn't crazy. That Sarah had changed. That I wasn't the villain. We grew closer. I won't pretend it was planned. It just happened. One night, after a long talk, she took my hand and said, "You deserve to be happy. And they're not letting you." I leaned in. She didn't pull away. That night, I didn't go home. For the first time in so long, I felt heard, seen, wanted. I know it was wrong, but I don't regret it. Sophie became my escape. My comfort, my clarity. She didn't excuse my choices, but she understood them. Sarah suspects something. She watches me, but hasn't confronted me yet. Sophie struggles with guilt too. But neither of us regret what we've found. Still, I know this can't last. When Sarah learns the truth, there will be no return. Final update. 2 years later. 2 years have passed. That chapter feels like a storm I survived. Yet the damage remains. I've rebuilt a new life. But the cost. Sarah and Emma cut me off entirely. In a way, they set me free. When I finally confessed, Sarah's fury was immediate. "What is this?" she demanded. "Tell me the truth." I said it plainly. "Sophie and we've been seeing each other." Her face twisted in disbelief. "So everything we built meant nothing to you?" I was speechless. Everything I had done, every mistake, was rooted in trying to hold on to a crumbling family. "Sarah," I said quietly, "while you were trying to save Emma, I lost myself. And you didn't even notice." Her scream cut through me. "What you've done is unforgivable." Emma walked in. She already knew. I thought you were better, she said coldly. But you only wanted to be the hero. And look at what you've done. That's not true, I whispered. I gave you everything. It was never enough. It wasn't, Sarah replied. Now let go. They asked me to leave. Told me never to contact them again. And so I did. I moved into a small apartment. The divorce was grueling. But the real pain, knowing the life I'd built was gone. Through it all, Sophie stood by me. She never tried to erase my guilt, but she helped me live with it. Months later, I got a message from Emma. Dad, I know I hurt you. I know I failed you. But you'll always be my father. I'm sorry. I know things will never be the same, but I will always love you. I didn't reply. Not right away. The wounds were still raw. Maybe one day I'll find peace. For now, I just keep moving forward, no matter what I've left behind.